Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson of HuskerBigRed.com, and with me, my co host, as always, is Danny Gillette of thegreatcornholio.org. And this morning, we're going to be talking about the 2023 football schedule that was recently released. And then we're also going to offer some bold predictions for the big game tomorrow for Nebraska and Illinois. Before we get into it, folks, make sure if you like our Nebraska content, like this video, comment, subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos. But Danny, we're one day away from the Nebraska game. I know we got the schedule and a lot of big news, but how you feeling about the Huskers right now?
I'm feeling excited. I mean, I think it's going to be a good game no matter what. I think Nebraska can keep it close, and I think it's just going to be about execution. I did a great podcast or a space with my friends over at Armchair Illinois the other day, and I talked a little bit about that. So if you don't know about that, you can definitely check it out. And I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a good game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by either side. But I think Nebraska and the fact that it's at home is always a bonus, and hopefully the fans will be in for a treat on Saturday.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a really fired up, Lincoln Memorial Stadium, a ranked team, a chance to end that, 6-year losing streak to ranked teams. And, I know Illinois has been really good this year, but I do feel like this is a winnable game for Nebraska if things, kind of go, the way that we hope that they go and, and all that. Mickey, there's been a lot of talk about him and a lot of talk, Priscilla Joseph and all this head coaching stuff. And we'll touch on that. But, the 2023 schedule also came out this week from the Big Ten. And, they wanted to, get one more schedule out before everything changes going into next season. I don't think we're going to have, the division format like we have anymore. It's all going to be, dramatically different with USC and UCLA coming in. But, one last schedule came out. And again, Nebraska starting on the road for the third straight, starting with the conference game, for a third straight year at Minnesota, at Colorado. Just what are your kind of first impressions of this schedule for next season?
I don't like the fact that we're starting with a conference opponent to start things off. I mean, Minnesota. I mean, I know they're probably going to lose. Obviously, Tanner Morgan, Mo Ibrahim, guys like that. But it's still a very well coached program and a very well coached team. So I'm not thrilled about starting on the road at Minnesota. Then we go at Colorado, and that was the first game I remember being heartbroken as a Husker fan when I really started following the team back in 2019. Colorado was the game that we should have had, in my opinion, that year. And then Northern Illinois the weekend after, September 16th. We've had success against them. I believe we also played them in 2019 after Colorado, and we were able to beat them. Louisiana Tech, I'm not sure too much about Louisiana Tech. I don't know if you know a little bit more than me, but I like the way September shapes up. We obviously have Michigan at the end, so that's going to be a challenge. I feel like the month of October will be a good test with Illinois, Northwestern, and Purdue. And then we have Michigan State, Maryland, Wisconsin, and Iowa in November. So I feel like no real 1 month is a gauntlet and that it's evenly spread out. And I do like the Northern Illinois and Louisiana Tech games in September because I feel like that gives the program a little bit of a break before the rest of the conference slate begins. I don't think it's going to be, easy by any stretch of the imagination, but it's certainly better than playing 3 conference opponents in a row, for instance, just to start off the year.
Yeah, I agree. It is, I don't know why they keep putting Nebraska, in this kind of conference game. And, we're not in week 0 this year, which I like, but still kind of starting on a national stage. That's going to be a Thursday night game, probably on Fox would be my guess, so it's going to be, that's going to be talked about. So, whoever is the new head coach, whether it's Mickey or somebody else, their first game is going to be right in the spotlight. So, that's something with Minnesota, but the Colorado game, they're going to have a new head coach too. So, it's, they're kind of in a similar situation to Nebraska, except maybe, they've had a little bit more of a struggle, although they've, been to the Pac-12 championship game and stuff more recently than us. looking at Northern Illinois and Louisiana Tech, both of them just have 2 wins so far this year. I mean, they've been programs that have traditionally gone to bowl games and stuff in, group of five. So I don't think they're going to be pushovers, but I look at this as, there's 7 home games, and I think every single one of them is winnable, except probably, that Michigan game is obviously going to be tough, but hey, Nebraska really could have beat Michigan last year if they didn't fumble, if Adrian Martinez didn't fumble on that drive. So,
Heavy size.
but you look at you got the 2 group of 5 teams, Northern Illinois, Louisiana Tech, then Michigan's at home. You got Northwestern at home, which Nebraska's had a lot of success even against Pat Fitzgerald. I mean, the last time they came it was like 56-10. And then Purdue's at home, and you look at Purdue, they're going to be graduating Aiden O'Connell, so they're not going to be the same type of team, I wouldn't think. And then Maryland is also, graduating the tag of, I can't pronounce the
Tagovailoa.
Yeah, yep, that's exactly it. Tua's younger brother, who's one of the most prolific passers in the Big Ten, he's going to be graduating. So you look at a lot of these teams, and then Iowa at home, who things really are kind of getting ugly for Kirk Ferentz. I mean, he's like fighting out with the media right now. I don't want to, throw rocks at a glass house or whatever, but it's things aren't going well over at Iowa either. And not that that's going to carry into next season, but I think if you look at all those games, they're pretty winnable. And I really, the season's going to be defined by, what you do in those road games at Wisconsin, at Illinois, at Minnesota, at Michigan State, but especially those 3 Big Ten West games. Because to me, this schedule sets up pretty well for, 6 or 7 wins. Now, if you want to get beyond that and contend for the title, then you got to win those road games. But, overall could be a lot worse, I guess. I don't love the start, but, like you said, there's not really any stretch that's unmanageable.
Like I would consider this upcoming stretch in November a little bit unmanageable. But I think
tough,
it's going to, be a little bit different than last year. I can already hear the people in my mentions saying, "Oh, you guys said this about this year's schedule," but I think having a competent head coach, having that stability, and also not having to travel to Ireland for the opener, I think is going to help a little bit too, because that's some frequent flyer miles logged for that opener. But, I really do like the schedule. I feel like it's a little bit more balanced than this year's schedule. And depending on who comes in, whether it be Mickey or somebody else, I do see this team reaching a bowl game. I don't really see, a situation where Nebraska loses to, Louisiana Tech or Northern Illinois. Granted, we said that about, Georgia Southern and, back in September, but I still think the schedule is pretty favorable to Nebraska as long as they don't fall flat on their face like they did at the beginning of this year.
Yeah. I mean, the Colorado game, is I think is winnable, and it's going to be I still like that they're playing another Power 5 team, and that's
Colorado's a tough place to play.
Yeah.
As
and
well. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And it's been a classic rivalry too. So, I mean, that's going to get the blood flowing, kind of like the Oklahoma game this year, where that used to be who Nebraska played, on Black Friday. So I do like that it's that game. And it's going to be, we'll see who, Colorado's got it as the head coach. I mean, they don't have a lot of great options. I don't feel like, Nebraska, I feel like they do, but there's been a lot of chatter about Mickey this week. And, there was people have been talking about what I don't think Priscilla Joseph said anything controversial, honestly. She just basically said that her husband wants the job, which why wouldn't you? I mean, if you were like interim CEO of some huge company, CEO, like, wouldn't you want to be the permanent CEO? Like, I don't understand like the controversy about whatever she said.
No, it's Nebraska and it's Twitter, and things just blow up and it's ridiculous. I mean, I feel like if you don't have somebody in charge who has that type of attitude, then you have the wrong guy. I mean, I really don't understand the controversy surrounding this, and it's ridiculous. And I understand that, Priscilla Joseph is very active on Twitter, and I have no problem with it. I mean, she's not really saying anything, derogatory or inflammatory or anything like that. So, I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, people just look for reasons to get clicks and stir stuff up. So, I mean, I don't really see anything wrong with what she said. And, I mean, if somebody has an attitude where they're where they're kind of indifferent about being head coach while they're in a head coach position at the moment, then I wouldn't want that guy. I wouldn't expect Mickey or Priscilla to say anything different because I think the Josephs are very detail oriented and hardworking. So I really don't see the issue here. It was a mountain out of a molehill, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Mickey, like she said, I thought she said some pretty, when I read the whole, I didn't listen to the whole interview, but I read some of the transcripts of it, and she was talking about how much he loved Nebraska, how he's always talked about Nebraska, Tom Osborne. And, there's a lot of people have said we just need a competent head coach. And so far, he's looked like that. We'll see what happens on Saturday. I mean, I think this really, I said this before, I said this earlier this week. I've said it on HuskerBigRed.com, but I do think that this is going to be a turning point game for Mickey Joseph. If they win this game, I think he's going to end up being the head coach. I mean, 100%. I think it's happening. I don't. Somebody put out a bold prediction. If Mickey beats Illinois, he's going to be named head coach on Sunday. I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think this team's definitely going to get to a bowl game if they beat Illinois, and I think Mickey is going to roll, into next season as the head coach. If, like I said, if not, though, if they lose this game, I could see it going in the other direction and them ending up at 5-7. And then if that happens, I do think Trev's looking for a new head coach. That's just my opinion. But I think I don't think there's any possible way in hell that there's some type of, handshake agreement done with Lane Kiffin or with Dave Aranda. I don't see how you could be giving Mickey a fair chance. And I'm not saying that Trev has to by any means, but it seems like he's considering him. And I just, I hear all these things that, oh, there's like a done deal and Mickey knows about it. Bullshit. That is bullshit. That has not happened. I really don't believe that Dave Aranda and Lane Kiffin are negotiating contracts. I'm not saying they haven't thought about Nebraska, and maybe the representatives have talked a little bit to Trev Alberts or some type of back channel, but I really have to believe that those guys are focused on their jobs. And frankly, if they're going to, sit there and interview for another job, 6 or 7 games, is that really a coach that you want? So, I mean, I really feel like, Ole Miss could win the SEC. I mean, they've still only got one loss. Dave Aranda's team is, they're not doing quite as well as last year, but they're still only got 2 losses in the Big 12. So they still have stuff to play for. And I still think Mickey has a puncher's chance in this one. So I wouldn't believe any of that stuff saying that this is a done deal. I think that's a little far out.
Yeah, I mean, I was just about to say, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth. Lane's been a little bit busy lately. So, I think, and especially when you had that whole fiasco, I forget his name, but when that person, blabbed about rumors and things on message boards and in the athletic department, I would keep things close to the vest. I mean, trust nobody except your boosters and yourself if you're Trev Alberts. I mean, I honestly think we won't hear anything or have a decision until the very last day possible in November, just to see how this all plays out. And it will be just enough time to start, early signing day. And as the transfer portal opens, I believe it was December 6th, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, I think so. I think after championship week, I think.
Yeah, so I think we won't hear anything until the last moment possible, not because of incompetency, but because there are still a lot of factors. And when we do hear something, I think things will move quickly. I don't think there will be a delay.
Yeah, I mean, look at, like the last year, Brian Kelly to LSU happened pretty quick. Lincoln Riley to USC. I mean, there was another big one.
Mario Cristobal to Miami.
Yep, Mario Cristobal to Miami. And that was a little bit later than, some people kind of expected it to be, but that's just kind of how it were. I don't know. Miami didn't really know they were going to get him. And so they kind of waited to fire Manny Diaz until they were sure they were getting Mario. It was kind of a weird deal, but so yeah, I do think it's going to move quickly. And, I think Dave Aranda and Lane Kiffin are right up on the list if Mickey's not the guy. I mean, you look at Lane Kiffin was talking about the other day how, he had an assistant coach, DJ Durkin, got stolen away, the DC from Texas A&M or to Texas A&M. And, he made the comment of, we tried to keep him, but, basically we got outbid. And that's something that happens around here a lot. And he also talked about, earlier this season about the stadium not being full. And it seems like, Nebraska's not going to have those problems. The stadium's always going to be full. And from everything we've heard, there's going to be plenty of money for assistant coaches, not only just for the head coach, but for assistant coaches too. And that is a big drawing factor because these guys know, I mean, Lane Kiffin and these guys know the difference between sometimes winning, some of these big games and losing them are those assistant coaches, not just because of their ability to recruit, but game plan and, all that type of stuff. Building a staff, a really good staff is, half the battle. And I mean, that, we saw with Scott Frost, it didn't work out well. So, I mean, you need to have money for that. And I think that's another thing that Nebraska is going to be able to sell is, this program is not short on resources in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and I think the boosters are ready for a winner, fans are ready for a winner. So I think you know there is money to be had there for a winning head coach, and there are resources available um, for a coach to succeed. And I think especially after Scott Frost, there will be, I don't want to say more money to get things right, but there will be a concerted effort to make sure things get right, and that may include more money for better assistance and things like that. But because you have to look at it from the perspective of Trev Alberts. He's washed his hands of Scott Frost, and now he can hire, not him personally, I guess, but he can have a head coach in his regime. Now you no longer, have the Bill Moose factor. This is your head coach under your athletic regime, and this will be a make or break hire for you if you get it wrong. So I can see due diligence being made, and I can also see a bunch of resources being used to make sure Nebraska gets a top-notch football coach, whether it be giving Joseph the money to get assistants or getting a new head coach with his own assistant coaching pool.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right in the sense that if Trev doesn't get this right, then he's going to be fired. I mean, there's no question about like if this doesn't work out, if this coaching hire does not work out, if Trev Alberts does not hire, the right guy here, Trev Alberts will not be hiring the next head football coach. That is a guarantee. We all know that's true. So, I mean, he's got to get this thing right as much as anybody. And,
Time is running out.
yeah, and he knows that. I mean, he knows the score. He knows what's at stake here. He's been in this business long enough as an athletic director, and he played the NFL, college football, so he knows what's at stake, and he wants this program, to be turned around as badly as anybody. I mean, I do believe that. I believe in Trev Alberts' process and the way he's kind of gone about this. Everything he's done, I've agreed with. I agreed with the giving Scott the extra year, even though it was a weird situation, but there was improvement last year. And so I understood it because there was a lot of divide in the fan base. And I think it got to the point where there was no divide. There was still a few, Frost hanger honors, but they're a bunch of crazies. Was the worst coach in Nebraska history. And, I totally agreed with firing him on Georgia, after that Georgia Southern loss. And, the way he's handled things with Mickey. So, I do have confidence in him, but it would be nice, I think he probably wouldn't mind it if Mickey just like made this decision easy for him if they just won out. And then he's like, well, nothing I can do, man. Mickey earned it. So I wonder if there's that part in his mind that, just wants to see Mickey go take this thing and never give it up.
I'm sure because, he wants a winner too. I mean, you saw how excited he was after, was it the Indiana game when he was in the locker room for Mickey Joseph's first win as interim head coach, and he was excited and players were excited. So he definitely wants a winner as well. But the clock is ticking. I mean, fans want a winner, for recruiting purposes and to keep up with the modern day college football game, especially with some guy named Lincoln Riley coming into town, conference town, that is. You need to win or else you're going to be in deep, deep trouble.
Yeah. And, I mean, a lot of people have said this, Mickey could play better if he had better recruits or if he had a better staff. Like, yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that, but just because you think he could do a better job than, Scott did of building this program doesn't necessarily mean he should get this job. I mean, I just think we have to still see how it goes. And, kind of as a segue away from the coaching conversation here, we'll get into some bold predictions for Nebraska and Illinois, because this is going to be, as I've said, a huge turning point for Mickey Joseph. I would love to see this team come out with a lot of emotion, a lot of fire, play great defense and pull an upset and just like make Lincoln Memorial Stadium feel like it used to on the Saturday, and it just hasn't felt that way for a long time. In October and November, I dread these Saturdays more than I've enjoyed them over the last few years, and I just would love for that to change. And as much as Illinois has a lot of things going for it, the pass defense, Chase Brown, the run defense, all these things, I still feel like I feel like Nebraska's due. Yeah, I just have a feeling that something good is going to happen this weekend. Now, I could be totally wrong. I probably will be. We'll probably all be crying on Sunday about how the team, broke our hearts or whatever. But like, damn it, this program's due for a good win.
I agree, and I was just looking at the statistics and the matchup predictor. ESPN has Illinois winning the game by 68.3%. And so I'm not really big into odds. I just read them because I think it's interesting to see what ESPN thinks. But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting game. And I'm just happy it's an afternoon game so that I don't have to go to bed right after the game, because that's what I've had to do on some of these night games. And so the last home game was Indiana, and that was almost a month ago. So I mean, it's going to be nice for the team to get back into the swing of things.
Yeah, and it's those fun afternoon games, where the it starts to kind of go from sun to evening. I love that part of college football. Our last Saturday in October, but yeah, I feel I totally agree with the ESP. 60. Yeah, I would say 2 out of every 3 times these teams play, or 6 out of 10 times, Illinois should win this game. I mean, that makes sense to me, but that doesn't mean that they are going to win this game this one time. I mean, how many times have we seen that in college football? And that's what you need is in a coach. You need a coach who, even if you don't have the best team, can find a way to win the game. And Scott Frost literally can never do that. Scott Frost had the better team like 90% of the time, and he still lost the game because he sucked. I'm sorry, but he sucked. He was the worst coach ever. And I mean, I just can't, I have no idea how anybody can defend Scott Frost. He's the worst coach in Nebraska history, and I don't think there's even a debate. It's not even close. Like, for what he did to the program, it is not even close that he's the worst coach we've ever had. But regardless of that rant, the point I'm trying to get at is, at some point you need to have a coach that can. It's like that thing with, like, you see, like, in youth sports sometimes, like there's a coach that could win with either team. He can take your players and win. He can take his own players and win. And that's what Nebraska needs. And they have not had that for a long, long time. And I'm hoping that Mickey Joseph can show some of that, on Saturday. He's got these guys inspired for sure, but we need to see some of the game planning and some of the great coach moves, the little subtle things. It's not always like, like, you look at some of the great moves that Bill Belichick made. It's not always like these crazy, amazing moves. It's just,
not lately. I'll say that right now. Not lately. Jeez. But anyway,
I mean, but hey, it goes back to the, it's hard to win without a quarterback, to the Patriots perspective. And actually,
you're going to find out soon. You're going to find out soon as a Packers fan.
Oh, I've already found out, man. I've already found out. I'm done. It's horrible.
One thing I will say is that I understand the Michigan State rivalry, but I wish Ohio State Penn State was a night game. They get the afternoon game, and I get Ohio State and Penn State play at night a lot, but I wish they were the night game. Granted, Michigan and Michigan State should be a pretty good game. I mean, those two teams have always played each other tough when they get together. So, but I just wish Ohio State Penn State was the nightcap.
Yeah, and but the reason is because Fox wants all of its games on noon. So Fox is the one to blame for that one, because whichever game they want, they put for their big noon, so they get first priority.
Annoying.
So
that is annoying.
Yeah, that's why that is where.
Or even 3:30, that would have been good. Ohio State Penn State at 3:30, not noon. Because noon, I'm just like eating my lunch, doing my weekend chores. I don't really watch the games until like 3:30 or at night, unless it's a Nebraska game. Then I push everything aside. But anyway.
Yeah, see, I watch the game day, and I watch Big Noon Kickoff more than. I'm not a big Pat McAfee fan, so that really just pushed me over the edge when they put. I just think the show's crap. Honestly, I think everything on. I just think ESPN is a general station. Like, if it wasn't for games being on there, like live sports, I would never watch it, because it's just freaking terrible. The guys don't know shit, and they don't know any. Like, there's nobody on there that knows a damn thing about Nebraska. I can tell you that much. And there's nobody on there that, frankly, knows a thing about college football outside of like just looking at a big spreadsheet and from a broad perspective. So, I mean, I don't know. ESPN's really gone downhill. We're kind of off the rails here.
Which is why you should turn to us for your for our bowl predictions for Nebraska and Illinois. And also, while I'm thinking of it, if you like and subscribe, we really appreciate the support, and we love doing this, and we love the interaction, and we love talking to you guys about college football, because clearly, as you guys can probably tell, we love talking college football. I can do this for 5 more hours. But
yeah.
so yeah, just please comment, like, and subscribe, and I think we can get into predictions now, and I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I've been trying to think about, some bold predictions. We had some, the other day. One of my bold predictions, though, it doesn't sound that bold. It kind of sounds like a crappy one, but I think Nebraska is going to hold Chase Brown, I'm going to say, to 120 yards or less. Now, I know that's not a huge number, but I mean, seeing that Devin Mockabee ran for 173 yards, I think it would be a fairly safe prediction to say that against one of the worst statistically run defenses in the country, that Chase Brown would go off for a huge game. And I don't think he's going to. I think Nebraska is going to hem him in a little bit. I do think, he is one of the best running backs in the country, so he's going to get 120 yards or so. But I do feel like if Nebraska keeps him kind of in that range and like I said, limits, doesn't give him like a 50, 60-yard touchdown run, I think Nebraska can win this game if he runs for, 120 yards. If he runs for like 170, no. But, barely over 100, and he's not getting a bunch of explosive runs, I think that means that Illinois is going to be in some third downs, and that gives Nebraska a chance. So that's one of my, I'll call it a semi-bold prediction. I think it is a bold prediction, though, for this defense. Chase Brown to 120 or less.
That is a bold prediction because they average 199 rushing yards per game on the season, but I would love to see it. I think for my first one of my bold predictions will be that Nebraska will score at least 20 points. And I understand that may sound a little simplistic, but Illinois has only allowed 8.9 points per game coming into the season. Granted, their schedule, and even when I talked with the Illinois guys about this, they admitted that, they haven't really been tested, but I think this offense is going to have a good day, and it's just going to be about the defense and defense stepping up. So with that, what's your second prediction?
Yeah, and that's to just piggyback on yours. Illinois, I believe, has only allowed 20 points or more once. I think that was to Indiana in that loss. So, hey, if Indiana can score 20, I don't see why we can't score 20. I do think that I'm going to say I believe the offensive line is going to play slightly better. That's not my prediction, though. My bold prediction is that Trey Palmer, even though he's going to have like every single Illinois defender like focusing on him, and they're going to have a big game plan, there's only so much you can do to stop him. And I still think that Trey Palmer, I'm going to say it again, bold prediction, he's going to catch at least 150-yard pass, and I think he's going to go for over 100 yards and catch a touchdown. Now, I don't know if that's going to be enough to win the game, but he's going to continue to prove that, he's the best wide receiver in America right now, at least in terms of college production.
That is a bold prediction because I was just saying the exact same thing. Every single Illinois defensive back is going to have their eye on Trey Palmer. Yeah. For this one, I'm going to say Marcus Washington will have at least 5 receptions. I think, the field will open up for Washington because of Illinois' attention to Palmer. He had 3 receptions for 30 yards against Purdue, and he's only had more than 5 receptions once in a game this season, and that was against Georgia Southern when he had 6 catches for 123 yards. But I think because of the attention paid to Palmer, that will give Washington more of an opportunity to really kind of take advantage of the holes in the Illinois defense. And as far as the secondary goes, there aren't many.
Yeah, it's, they have been tough, but again, they haven't played a receiver like, Trey Palmer. I mean, Indiana, I think, is the best offense they've faced. They didn't even have to see, Chris Ottman-Bell, at Minnesota. So there is, Iowa literally has they have one tight end, the Laporta guy, and that's basically it. So, I mean, he is good, but they haven't seen, I don't think he's better than Vokalek. I think they're compared. So like they really haven't seen an offense like Nebraska's yet. I mean, as poor as this team's been, it's scored like 30 points in 3 Big Ten games, 3 out of 4 Big Ten games. We've got at least, or 28, I guess. We got 28 against Northwestern, but still that's not bad production. So my last bold prediction is it's going to have to do with the Nebraska pass rush. And I came up with an interesting stat the other day looking at Garrett Nelson. So in Nebraska's 3 wins, basically Nebraska hasn't won a game this year in which Garrett Nelson has not had a sack. So in the 4 losses, Garrett Nelson hasn't had a sack, and he's only had 1 tackle for loss. And in the wins, he's got 4.5 sacks and like 5 tackles for loss. So really, he's a big factor in this matchup. And I feel like, he's played really well at home for the most part. So I'm going to say that Garrett Nelson gets at least 1 sack. And I think that the defensive line gets about 3 total. And it kind of goes back to the Chase Brown thing. I think they're going to, be able to limit him a little bit. And it's just about tackling, really. I don't think it's anything fancy. They just got to tackle. And, I think they're going to have a lot of emotion. They're going to have a lot of want to with Mickey. They know, like I said, they know what's at stake in this game. And, I think O'Shawn Mathis, Ty Robinson, and Garrett Nelson, I think, have some of their best games, Caleb Tanner. And we'll see. That's what Nebraska's going to need. But I'm going to say 3 sacks. And I'm going to say a sack by Garrett Nelson. And that's meant a win in the other 3 games. And we'll see if that means a victory on Saturday.
That's an interesting one. I guess for my last bold prediction, I'm trying to think because there's a couple of directions I want to go with this one, but I think my last bold prediction is that the offensive line will only give up 2 sacks.
2 sacks. That's pretty bold.
That's my bold prediction, but I think honestly, if Thompson can roll out of the pocket a little bit more, not just like a running quarterback, but by him some, and then, kind of involve the running game a little bit more with Anthony Grant. I think, this could be a game where the offensive line doesn't shine, but does enough to kind of hold itself over. I mean, at some point as a coach, you got to look at the film and say, what can we do so that Casey Thompson doesn't get hurt from this offensive line.
Doesn't get murdered.
So I think
we're laughing about it, but he's taking some pretty that one shot last week where he against Purdue, I swear to God he broke a rib. I don't know how he did.
Rutgers. I thought Rutgers he was gonna.
He had won that one too, where I thought he's got to have 4 broken ribs.
Oh no! No way! But.
Say what you want, man. That guy is tough as hell.
He is tough as hell.
He's a warrior.
I think honestly in Nebraska, if I were them, I'd try to control the clock, and you can do that by running the football. And so I think 2 sacks is, or what I say, 2 or 3.
I think you said 2. Yeah,
I said 2. Yeah, I said 2, and I think 2 is reasonable because I think they're going to try to involve Anthony Grant a little bit more and try to get the ball out quick. For Casey Thompson, and I understand that may be a bold prediction, and it's probably quite honestly unrealistic. But because if I'm Mark Whipple, I want to play ball control football in this one.
Yeah, I'm interested. Mickey in his press conference yesterday was asked about Rahmir Johnson, and he said, Rahmir needed to get healthy, and that's why he wasn't playing. He said that he's stacked practices together now. So, I don't know what anybody else thinks, but I always thought that Rahmir was pretty good in pass protection. And I've not watched every play or anything, but I don't think that Anthony Grant is really. I think he really needs to learn about it. And it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not like you just sit there and block. I mean, you have to. But I've seen him at times where he should be starting to block somebody, and then he just starts running out for a pass, and Casey gets killed. It's like, dude, if you just blocked and he could sidestep. So I'm interested to see if Rahmir Johnson plays in this game. He had that 17-yard run against Purdue, and mostly because I want to see him on those. I think he's a better pass protector than Anthony Grant, and then I think he's just a little better. I think he'll be better at chipping and then kind of floating his way out to the flats where Casey can actually throw him the ball, or you could run some of those option routes because Anthony Grant's caught some passes, but he just doesn't look as natural to me. Rahmir could play receiver. He's got natural hands. So he's kind of one of my X factors. And I want to see if that pass protection is going to hold up. And I also wrote about this too, because I just feel like Tommy Hill, I feel like there's a chance that Tommy Hill gets a deep ball in this game, a couple of them. He's playing at the X receiver, which is on the outside. They've talked about his speed. Casey's talked about how he likes him on deep balls and stuff. So I feel like at some point they're going to have Trey Palmer on the field and Tommy Hill on the field. And Tommy Hill's probably going to get one-on-one coverage because, like we said, everybody's going to be paying attention to Trey. And I think they're going to play action and like bomb one down to Tommy Hill. I'm not saying he's going to catch it, but he could be an X factor, or he could come up with a big kickoff return like we saw against Purdue. A big return, something, anything like that. That's how Nebraska can pull an upset in this game, is get one of those X factor plays to go its way.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a good point with Hill. I'm curious to see what he can do because I think he's a very good athlete. I'm just not sure that college corner was the best position to put him in. So I'm curious to see, because if he can carve out a solid couple of games here to finish the season, heading into next year as a solid number 3 receiver in college football, a number 3 receiver is no slouch. He established himself as that, good complementary weapon, then I can see him really doing big things, especially if Mickey's still around.
Yeah, and I think too, if you gave him like a year to learn, I think he could be, if he learned the slot a little bit, because he is really quick and
he played in high school.
Yeah, he played receiver, and so I mean, like if Mickey Joseph says he's a receiver, I think Mickey Joseph evaluates receiver as well as anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So, I believe in, and so yeah, I am interested in Marcus Washington too. Like he's caught a lot of underneath stuff, but like if you go look at his Texas highlights, like with Casey, like he averaged like 18 yards of reception. So they had some big plays down the field. We haven't quite seen it with Marcus. He's been close, but I'm interested to see that this week because I feel like Nebraska, it is going to be tough to sustain drives against this Illinois defense. Like they've got to create some chunk plays, and they've been good at doing that. But they're gonna have to do it again. They're gonna have to come up with 5, 6 explosive plays, I think, to win this game.
Well, it's also about getting to have and why Casey and Trey work so well is because Casey can literally just throw it in Trey's direction. Trey can outrun the secondary guy and go for a touchdown. Other receivers, it takes a little bit more time and timing, and that's perfectly fine. But Casey just hasn't had that this year. So I think, I hate to play the what if game and continue to complain about the offensive line, but it just makes me think, what if Casey had a little bit better or a lot of it better? I'm trying to be nice here, of an offensive line. What could the offense really, really accomplish? And that's not to say that the offense has been bad either. The offense has been really good, but I'm just saying in general, and we've scratched our heads sometimes at the play calling of Whipple, but I think honestly some of these plays work if everybody just had a little bit more time to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, and I think that brings up an interesting point in everybody's talking about next season, and with Mickey, Casey, what he was talking, he's listed as a junior, and he was talking about next season and how he wants Mickey back and stuff. So I mean, he sounds like a guy who's coming back next year to me. Casey does, and along this offensive line talk, it's been interesting. All the JUCO offers that Mickey's putting out there, especially at offensive line, like they know they need help, and I think it's smart to look at the JUCO ranks because it is going to be easier to get some of those guys, because the second you get a talented offensive lineman in the portal, like it's like a mad dash, you know what I mean? So I do like the idea of, kind of restocking the offense and defensive line with some JUCO guys that are a little more ready to play and are probably a little more available than, some of these top transfer portal guys are going to be.
Yeah, that's exactly the thing. I mean, the JUCO guys have experience and, they've played against some quality competition. Just because we don't hear about JUCO competition doesn't mean it's not good. I mean, there is some quality competition, but I thought Casey saying, he wants Mickey back next year was interesting for those reasons. And not that a player's decision ultimately goes into the selecting of a coach, but having your starting quarterback say that he likes working with Mickey and that he, would want Mickey back. Certainly don't love to see Casey back next year because it would give us continuity at quarterback. And I think he's good. And sure, does he make some mistakes? Yeah. But I think also if he had a little bit more time, some of those mistakes would be gone.
Yeah, and a little better running game. I mean, that's the thing with Illinois. Tommy DeVito's only thrown interceptions, but at the same time, he's probably not been in a lot of situations where he's been behind, where he has to force the ball, where it's a lot easier. And as an offensive lineman, it's a lot easier. It's a hell of a lot easier to pass protect if you're always in
Mm-hmm.
3rd and 5 or because the thing is they could just run with Chase Brown. So I feel like, if they can get some of those things going, hopefully they can get Anthony Grant. I don't think Anthony Grant needs to have a great game, but he's got to get like 60 something, like 65 yards or something,
Yep.
like just 3-4 yards a carry. Just don't be in 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10 all game. But
Just to stabilize the offense and give some balance to it. Because
yeah,
the minute you pass 75 times a game, I'm exaggerating, but like 40 or 50 times a game, you become predictable. And you don't want to become predictable against a well-coached team like Illinois.
and I think too, with the way Illinois is they want to kind of make it like a ground and pound NFL kind of game, like the Rutgers game where both teams
Mm-hmm.
barely ran 70 plays. And for Nebraska, that works just fine for me. Just make Chase Brown and these guys put together 10-play drives because they're going to milk a bunch of clock. And if you're Nebraska, if you just get to the 4th quarter and you're within a score, then one play by Trey Palmer could tie or win you the game. That's really all you need to do. Just get the football to the offense within a score late in the game and go win it. I mean, if Nebraska can just find a way to get this to the 4th quarter, then you just never know what can happen. Yeah, and then I like their chances of pulling an upset.
I like the thing you said about 70 plays, not 103 plays. 103
Yeah,
plays is not a recipe for success
no,
defensively, and I think minimizing the time the defense is on the field is going to be important for both
yep,
teams, honestly,
yeah.
because I think this is going to be an offensive game. I really do, and I'm just excited to watch it. I'm excited to see, especially after, and I hate to bring this up, but last year's game against Illinois, I mean, it would
Yeah,
be
that
nice
wasn't
to
pretty.
get a win.
It
Yeah, that
would.
was a heartbreaking one.
And I think it's one of my posts I wrote this week was 5 Huskers that need to stand out against Illinois. Well, 2, I kind of mentioned 6 names. I kind of cheated, but two of the names were Bill Bush and Mark Whipple because these guys they really need to shine on Saturday. I mean, Bush needs to come up with a really good game plan, and they need to find a way to slow down this running game. And I think Mark Whipple, I mean, he needs to call one of the best games of his career. And I think that, I mean, these guys know that they have to win to keep their own jobs. Or, I'm not saying that Mark Whipple's not going to find a job, but I mean, do you think he wants to move out of Nebraska already? He's only been there for like 6 months. So, I
No,
mean,
he's been around the block. He doesn't need to go job hopping. I mean, I wouldn't honestly be surprised, and this is just me saying this. That I don't know anything, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he retired next year.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, it might be. I don't know, man. If somebody offered me like 700K to run their offense, I don't know. I might do it, but we'll see what he does. But yeah, I mean, he is having some health issues, so if you consider that,
I mean, he's been a head coach at the college level. He's been an NFL coordinator. I mean, he's done. I mean, maybe not everything he's wanted to do, but he's certainly done his time for the game. And just football aside, I'll be curious to see how his health issues progress, and I hope everything goes well and
yeah,
nothing gets too into poor health. But you know. You can tell that he loves the game. I think you can tell that he loves the game, and um, all things considered, I think he's done a pretty good job this year. So I'll be interested to see what he does on Saturday. Like you said, he's going to have to call one of the best games of his career, and I think he'll be up for the challenge. I think this team will be up for the challenge. I think the coaching staff is going to be up for the challenge on Saturday, and I'm excited. I really am excited.
I'm looking forward to it too. So we'll wrap it up here, folks. Remember to like this video, comment, subscribe to the channel here, huskerbigred.com. You can always find our stuff. Huskerbigred.com is my website. Thegreatcornholio.org is where Danny has all of his content. And sign up and subscribe here to the YouTube channel. Before we go, we talked about our predictions the other day. I had Nebraska losing this one 24-17. Danny, you said 27-17. Any reason to change that? Or you still feeling okay about that prediction?
I'm still feeling okay about that. I hope that's not the case, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout, like I said earlier. But I think Illinois is just going to have that many more playmakers to get the job done. And, come next year or, a few years down the road, I think Nebraska will be able to have those playmakers on their roster, but right now I don't know if they have enough.
Yeah, I'm going to say too, I think there are a lot of reasons why Nebraska can win this game. I think they're going to have an opportunity, if they play well to win, but, we just haven't seen them, beat an opponent like this. And so, if I was betting my money on it, I definitely would take, I would take Nebraska still with the spread though. That's what I said, it's a plus 7.5. I think they can cover the spread, but I don't know that they can win this game. I mean, I believe that they can, but will they? That's the question, and we're not going to have that answer until Saturday at about 6 o'clock Nebraska time.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be on Twitter all day, tweeting and interacting with you guys. And I know Chris, I think you might have something for your newspaper, but to see highlights and talk with you guys. So feel free to follow us and talk with us. We got our Twitter handles, I believe, down below, and so it's always never a boring Saturday for Nebraska football, win or lose. It's always that's what I love about doing videos and stuff with this program. You never run out of news or things to talk about, good or bad. Just wait till we get to basketball season. We may be doing a Fred Hoiberg fire video or something. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. But
hopefully not. Hopefully not. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks again for sticking around with us. We'll hope to see you around again here on the Husker Big Red YouTube channel, and hopefully the Huskers win on Saturday. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.